to Spill the Tea, a podcast by Penang Institute, where we dive into compelling stories, groundbreaking ideas, and visionary leaders. I'm your host, Dr. Beh May Ting. Today, I'm thrilled to be speaking with Dr. Nasha Rodziadi Khaw, Deputy Director of the Center of Global Archaeological Research at USM. Though he began his academic journey in chemistry, Dr. Nasha's passion for ancient civilizations led him to archaeology, culminating in a PhD from the University of Peshawar in 2016, where he focused on Gandhara inscriptions and civilizations. One of his most important contributions in his work at Bukit Choras, a remote limestone outcrop near the Bujang Valley. Excavations there uncovered a hilltop temple complex and more recently a 1,200-year-old life-sized Buddha statue. And this is a discovery older even than Angkor Wat and Borobudur, and definitely among the most significant in recent Malaysian history. These findings point to a far more expansive and sacred landscape in ancient Kedah than previously imagined. Dr. Nasha, great to have you on Spill the Tea.
And it is a great pleasure to be here, Dr. Beh. Thank you for having me here.
Now, to start off, we'll start with a quick fire round. All right. First off, describe what you do in one sentence.
I studied the material culture of ancient societies to get some insight into their ancient activities.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very important stuff there. Something which is very important to see beyond just textbooks.
Yeah.
What would be your last meal on death row?
Last meal on death row. Well, I'm going to have a beef rendang.
Beef rendang. Okay. A very hearty meal.
Yes.
Yeah. If you had an extra hour in a day, what would you do with it?
Watching Netflix.
Okay. Which show?
Designated Survivor, my favorite.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. What's the best advice that you have ever gotten?
The best advice. Chaos is an opportunity.
That's very interesting.
Uncertainty is an opportunity.
Okay.
When there is uncertainty, we can be able to maneuver ourselves.
Okay. Basically, also seize the moment.
Yeah.
All right. Finally, if you could choose one person, dead or alive, to have a meal with, who would that be?
My mom.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you still have a lot of meals with her?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, so let's dive in now. So firstly, I'd like to explore how archaeologists, make sense of the past through both material evidence as well as historical texts, and how these two sources of knowledge inform or challenge one another. So when approaching an ancient site, right, what are the guiding theoretical frameworks or principles that shape how you interpret these physical remains?
Okay, first of all, we need to define what is archaeology. We define archaeology as a field of research where we study and interpret ancient human activities based on material remains. That is archaeology. So it is not much different than history, but history focuses on historical texts, but we base ourselves on historical remains.
Okay.
When I first enter an archaeological site, I am going to pay attention to one thing, the environment.
All right.
The present day environment and the past environment in that place. Because environment is not just a backdrop, but it is a living context under which human society evolved, under which human culture started to take shape. So before we can be able to interpret the archaeological site, we need to understand the environment surrounding the archaeological sites. So when we identify an archaeological site, the first thing we do is to study the environment first, regarding the location of the rivers, the location of the coastline, the elevation, the soil, the ecozone and everything. And then we can go into the archaeological sites.
Okay.
And in our research, the new approach that we are adopting, when we look at artifacts, we don't just focus on the intrinsic values of the artifacts. It is not just about understanding the dating or the function of the site, but the symbolism of the artifacts. How does the artifact reflects upon the interface between local agency, and then the environment, the geopolitical situation. For instance, when we discover a ceramic, we are going to study where the ceramic came from, why it was there, who made the ceramic. It is not just about the function of that ceramic, but the story behind it. So that gives meaning to the artifacts actually. So that's why I say that it is not just about the intrinsic value of the artifact, but the meaning of the artifact in terms of its relation with human culture, with the environment and the regional development.
So it has to be a big picture type of analysis instead of just zooming into that one thing that you may have dug up.
Exactly.
Right.
When we look at archaeological findings or some monuments, I focus on one word: context. Context, context, and context. When we dig out the artifact, we discovered a pottery, for instance. We need to look, where is this pottery located? How does the pottery is related to the environment? How does it relate to society? And why it was there. So we need to answer all these kinds of questions. So a single piece of ceramic can be able to tell lots of stories when you adopt this kind of approach, rather than to just say that this pottery served as a cooking vessel and dated at 7th century CE. So the story ends there. But there is a bigger question that we need to ask, when we study this thing.
Okay, so but in order to know of the story of these artifacts, right? Wouldn't it be, how do you actually piece together all the fragments that you might have found? How do you piece it together to come up with a big narrative?
Now, we have a saying that archaeology is actually the science of rubbish.
Okay.
Because the discovering fragments of artifact is a norm in archaeological digs. When we dig, in most cases, the artifacts that we discover, they are in small fragments, and most of them are not in a very good state of preservation. And it is the job of archaeologists to piece together the fragments and try to get some insight regarding what does it tell about the ancient society. So from a single fragment, we can actually tell a lot of story. For instance, let's say we discover a piece of pottery. Okay, just a piece of pottery. We excavated several centimeters. We know that the pottery is undisturbed. We say, okay, a pottery. Though based on the decoration of the pottery, we can tell about the ancient art. Based on the chemical content of the pottery, we can be able to tell where it came from. Based on the firing method of the pottery, we can tell about the technology. Based on the hardness or the material features of the pottery, we know whether it was traded or locally made. So just from a piece of fragment, then we can tell so many stories. And that is why I say that in our approach, it is very important for us to contextualize. So the discovery of fragments can tell us lots of story, and that is just pottery. For instance, other religious remains, I discovered inscription written in Sanskrit language. Although it is broken, but we can be able to study the paleography, the language, and based on that, we can be able to have some discussion regarding the interconnectivity between the Bujang Valley with the outside world. So the discovery of fragments, we don't have so much problem to give meaning because of the approach of research that we use. That we can be able to extract much information from it. So that's why I say that it is a special science, the science of rubbish, to get information from this rubbish, into a meaningful historical narrative.
But has it ever happened that you find conflicting from all these fragments, right? There surely must be a chance of getting building conflicting stories from the
yes,
things
definitely. That is what archaeology is all about, debate. Because when we discover for instance some material remain, it is always open to interpretations.
Yes, exactly.
Different scholars would have different views towards the finding. Okay, I will give you an example. When we excavate, we discovered a Buddha statue. Okay, of course we say that there was a Buddhist community there. Who are the Buddhist communities? Were they locals or were they foreigners? Was the Buddha statue made locally or it was brought in from outside? So no, there's no right and wrong. So instead of giving one story, archaeologists would give several layers of narrative. So that there is several strands of narrative. We are simply presenting different possibilities to the history. So of course, there can be more than one interpretation for a single artifact. So debates and different interpretations is something normal. So that's why from a single artifact, you can have so many different ideas about it. And that is what archaeology is all about. That is what academy is all about.
Yeah, so everything's open to interpretation.
as long as we follow the correct methodological approach.
Yes, yeah, backed by scientific methodologies.
Yeah, as long as we can be able to justify the findings. So that's why the difference between archaeology and history is that the interpretation is not definite. For history, it can be clearly stated, you know, the political structure, the name of the rulers, etc. But for archaeology, we are talking about material remain and it is open to interpretation. So that is why for the history of ancient Kedah, seeing that it is based on archaeology, there are so many different theories, hypotheses about the culture, about the religion, about the political structure. You know, different scholars would have different school of thoughts. So
Yes,
that is
exactly.
something normal in archaeology.
Yes, and actually even in the wider academia as well, because I am an anthropologist and a sociologist. So like when we look at, you know, narratives or stories, when we just look at one certain fact, right, it's not necessarily true, because it can be true. There are different truths for different people.
Yeah.
So it depends on like your social understanding and what you've ever been exposed to in your life. So I suppose in that sense it comes together, just as in archaeology, that there can be different interpretations of different scenarios.
Yes,
right?
that's why in archaeology there is a clear difference between facts and opinions.
Yep.
Okay, for instance in Bujang Valley, what is the fact? The fact is we had a Buddhist finding there.
Yes.
It's clear. We
Yeah.
found a Buddhist statue.
Yeah.
Opinion.
Yeah.
Was it built by traders? Was it built by local communities? Was it built by the local rulers? Those are opinions. Okay, another example. Fact. We discovered a pottery.
Yeah.
Okay, there was a domestic activities over there.
Yeah.
People were cooking or something. That is a fact. But who did the cooking?
Yeah.
Who brought in the pottery? Who made the pottery? Those are opinions.
Yeah.
So there is a very clear distinction between facts and opinions. So people usually would debate regarding the interpretation, but we shouldn't debate on the facts. That's why the method of excavation is very important for us to make sure that the fact is a fact.
Yeah.
And opinion we can be able to debate later.
Correct.
And that is
yeah.
the job of an archaeologist. Usually
Okay.
we would do our research properly, we will excavate the site properly and let the art historians argue
Yeah,
about
that's a good
who
one. Yeah.
actually the interpretations regarding who
Correct.
built it, you know,
Yeah.
who brought in the art. Let the art historians. So we archaeologists, our job is to do the excavation properly.
Yeah, do the excavation properly, and like when things are found, it is what it is.
Yes, and
Yeah.
let the historians or the art historians, you know, let them think, don't worry about those.
Yeah.
But the most important job of an archaeologist is to conduct the research properly,
Okay.
to do the digging properly, and to take care of the archaeological sites. That is the most important thing.
Okay. So in that case, right, I mean, if we were to move towards previous theories, I know this would go into the area of the historians,
Yes,
but
yeah,
if
yeah.
we could just touch a bit about this, you know, what has been like the previous theories about ancient Kedah?
Okay, now, archaeological research, started in Bujang Village somewhere in the mid 19th century CE.
Okay.
Continued until today, you know, more than 100 years already. So there were dozens of researchers who had been excavating that site, and different researchers would have their own point of views, but generally we can divide. There are three main theories, okay, regarding the political system or the religious features of the people in Bujang Valley. The first theory, we call it the colonization theory.
All right.
Number two, we call it the indigenization theory. Number three, we call the trade enclave theory. Okay, there are three main theories right now. The colonization theory stated that the people of ancient Kedah was fully Indianized.
Okay.
Okay, it was just like an Indian colony. That's why we call it colonization. So there was continuous exodus from India into Kedah, and the people, they do not have any local features in their culture. They were 100% Indianized, and Kedah was practically an Indian
Community,
enclave, and an Indian colony. You know, so that is the first theory, and this theory was introduced by Corridge Wales. He was the first to conduct an extensive research in the Bujang Valley. Okay, so the local people fully adopted Indian culture, and they established the colonies in the area, so they had the Indian political system, the Indian law, Indian social system, and everything. Okay, and then after that, we had the indigenization
Indigenous.
theory. So this theory stated that the local people were selective in choosing the aspect of Indian culture that they wanted to accept. So they try to compare the people of ancient Kedah with the Javanese or the Angkorians. So they had their local features, but they just adopted several elements of the Indian culture. So most of the temples that was discovered in Bujang Valley, it was a hybrid between local and Indian culture. Okay, that is, we call it the indigenization theory. This theory was first proposed by Alastair Lamb. Okay, it was proposed by Alastair Lamb and supported by Nick Hassan Sohaimi and Zuhair Iskandar Ramli from University Kebangsaan Malaysia. Okay, so until today, this theory is quite popular in the Bujang Valley. Number 3, we had the trade enclave theory, and this theory was actually proposed by an American scholar. Her name is Jane S. Allen, and supported by a Swiss scholar. His name is Michel Jacques Hegwalch. This theory stated that Indian culture never touched the local people, and whatever temples or Hindu Buddhist materials that we had in the Bujang Valley was actually left by the traders. So they never, so the local people were never Indianized. So we have 3 types. Number 1, the colonization, which mentioned that the people were fully Indianized. Number 2, we had the indigenization theory, which stated that the people were partially Indianized. And number 3, the trade enclave, they were not Indianized at all. I used to support the third theory. I used to support the third theory, but now I came to a different conclusion. Based on our research in the Bujang Valley, it appears that all the 3 theories was an oversimplification. History. Because these 3 theories, they did not take into account the paleo environment of the Bujang Valley. They did not take into account the pattern of settlement, and they did not go into the detail of different sites in the Bujang Valley. So they simply paint the whole area with the same color. They were under the impression that everyone in the Bujang Valley shared the same kind of cultural features. So they were either fully Indianized, or they were partially Indianized, or they were not Indianized. So that's why I say that it is an oversimplification of theory. And now in USM, we propose our own theory right now, which appears to be more logical, judging from the pattern of settlement in the area.
Mine to share exactly what your new theory is.
I was waiting for you to ask. Okay, now. We now no longer view ancient Kedah as a centralized or monolithic polity anymore. Ancient Kedah was in fact a network of coastal and riverine settlement, and each settlement could have been autonomous. And different settlement would have different level of acceptance towards Indian culture, depending on their socio-economic condition, depending on their relation with the foreign traders, depending on their environment and their trade volume. So we have within the Bujang Valley 3 main settlements. We have Kampung Sungai Mat, we have the Sungai Muda complex, Sungai Bujang complex, and Sungai Batu complex, and different complexes would have their own level of acceptance to Indian culture. So we cannot say that everyone were Indianized or everyone were not Indianized. Different communities would have their own way of expressing local culture. So for instance, in Kampung Sungai Mas, within the Sungai Muda complex, we see lots of Hindu and Buddhist temples, and these temples came from different influences. We have Indian influence, we have Javanese influence, we have Champa influence. And then when we go to the Sungai Batu Archaeological Complex, it is a massive iron smelting complex, but just with one Buddhist site. And then we go to the Pengkalan Bujang complex, we discovered several Hindu and Buddhist temples showing different influences also. So it is not really a homogeneous area. Different communities would practice different form of cultures, and when we look at the local community, not all of them were Indianized. Those who were Indianized, they were mostly coastal communities, while the people living in the interior, they were not touched by the Indian culture. So Indian influence only focused on the coastal areas, and within the coastal areas, I believe that those who were Indianized consisted of local rulers, maybe merchant aristocrats, and some portion of communities who live near to the economic centers, while in other places they still retain their original beliefs. So we see Bujang Valley not as a place where there was a regular process of Indianization, but it is a place where different cultures were being practiced at the same time, depending on the socio-economic condition, depending on the location of settlements. So it is very complicated.
It is. It's far more complex. I mean, like if we think of society now as complex, of course the society society in the past were also more complex. We cannot just put a blanket definition to everyone.
Yeah, so that is what we see. And we can be able to interpret this by looking at the distribution of archaeological sites in the Bujang Valley. You know, we use the satellite imaging and everything. So we look, when we see, we say that Hindu and Buddhist sites, they were only focused in the coastal areas only.
Okay.
When we go to the interior, not a single Hindu and Buddhist site.
Okay.
And when we go outside Bujang Valley, also no Hindu and Buddhist site. So it appears that it was, it focuses around the mercantile community.
Yeah.
You know, and after the decline of Bujang Valley, after the 14th century, the site simply vanished. No new site will be. So I believe that most sites in the Bujang Valley were built under the context of international trade. You know, there were international local trade. There were local traders. There were foreign traders living alongside with the locals, and some of them were influenced by the Hindu and Buddhist religion. So there were traders building the sites in collaboration with the local rulers, and there were local rulers building the sites in the collaboration with the traders. You know, so different sites were built by different groups of people under different contexts. So we should not say that paint this whole area with the same color. So it is on context basis. And also the process of Indianization, it is not a unidirectional process. It is a multi-directional process. It is a multi-vocal process. You know, we should view the people of ancient Kedah as active agents for the transmission of foreign ideas. They took the idea, and there is some cultural negotiation between local and foreign community. So in our opinion, the people in ancient Kedah, they were very complex. It is comparable to what we see in Penang or in Malacca or in Singapore, where there were indigenous communities as well as foreign communities, you know, living side by side for the purpose of economy.
Because of all this international trade and, you know, merchants moving around. I mean, like, even just to simplify, our culture, I mean, like, your own culture would be different from that of your neighbors.
Exactly.
You may be living just like a few feet from each other, but you already have very different cultures and beliefs already. So, like, it's impossible to even, you know, to say that the entire valley, you know, is made up of like one single type of entity, one single categorization of people. So yeah, definitely the intermingling is like a melting pot lah.
It is a melting pot, and it is not unique to Bujang Valley only. It is in other places also, because, you know, for any maritime communities, you are located on the coastal area at the entrance of the Strait of Malacca. Definitely traders from India, from China, from Southeast Asia is going to visit there, and the local people, they were already used to these kind of things. That the culture, the conception of cultural identity was extremely fluid and dynamic.
Yes,
you know?
fluidity.
So it is not really a monolithic culture. So we should view Bujang Valley as a place where different cultures were being practiced, where the local people were able to adopt different aspects of foreign cultures while practicing their own. You know, we have, for instance, in the site of Pengkalang Bujang, we discovered a complex where Hindu and Buddhist sites were located next to each other. With the same dating. We have discovered a temple, a Buddhist temple, but inside the relic deposit, an Arabic coin, Abbasid coin, buried underneath a temple. So that's why I say that it was a mercantile community where the concept of art, religion is something very fluid. So this is the new view that we are having right now, and this sets the historical precedent to the multiculturalism that we have today in Malaysia. The culture complexity that we have today. So it shows that our culture had always been very diverse since the ancient times also. And after the decline of ancient Kedah, we saw the rise of the Malacca Sultanate, and it was a multicultural society. They had the Kampung India, they had the Kampung Cina, they had the Kampung Jawa. You know, the writing of Tomé Pires stating that in Malacca 80 languages were spoken there. So we can see that the diversity
had always been there.
You know, even before Malacca, which is ancient Kedah. So this is the new view that we are having on ancient Kedah. We no longer see ancient Kedah as a centralized, Indianized kingdom, but as a collection of communities. And each community could have been autonomous, each with their own chieftains. If maybe there is one dynastic rulers, but different community would have their own specific economic functions. So that's why I say that the three theories is an oversimplification of history.
Definitely. Like, I think if wherever humans are involved, there shouldn't be any oversimplifying, because humans are complex.
Even today. You know, even today, you know, you see, for the Chinese community, for instance, many of them are Buddhists, but at the same time they were offering worships to the Hindu temples also. And that should have been
would have happened
already
in the ancient times as well.
So for instance, Bukit Choras was located, you say that in the coastal areas, so traders could have just stopped by and give some offering to the Buddhist temple. When they found a Hindu temple, they are going to give the same offering. Try to cover as much as possible.
Just in case.
So that could have been the situation in those days. And the purpose, the emergence of Bukit was due to economic factor. People wanted to trade. So religion was something secondary, in my opinion. I believe that the reason why Bukit emerged was due to geopolitics. It was located in the middle of the trade route. We had China in the east and India in the west. People were compelled to stop there because of the monsoon. So while people were there, they were intermingled. They conducted their trade. So that is how we should view ancient Kedah. Not from the political or religious lens, but from the economic lens.
Basically, even at that point, it was boundaryless already. As long as people could reach there safely without getting sunk in the sea somewhere, like whoever who could reach there and pass by there would have left some form of culture or impression or elements already.
And they had to stay there for at least 6 months. While waiting for a monsoonal change, and within 6 months there were lots of things that they could do.
For sure.
6
months is a long time.
6 months is a long time, and we can see the size of the temples, most of them are quite small. They were built within a short period of time.
Right.
So of course we had some big temples in the Bukit Choras, but many of them are quite small. So I believe that many of them could have been built by the traders community with the assistance of the local rulers and manpowers and everything. But for the purpose of to be used by the traders. And for the bigger temple, for instance, the one that we discovered in Kampung Sungai Mas, very complex, big stones, those could have been built by the local rulers, to elevate their statures.
Just out of curiosity, when you say small, how small are we talking about?
Small, maybe by 5 to 6 meters.
5
to 6 meters. I mean, small relative to Angkor Wat and Borobudur.
I just needed that picture in my head.
And they were small and they were clustered together near the river estuary and river banks.
So were there many of these that have been found?
In whole of the Puchang Valley, inclusive of other types of sites, we have documented 184 archaeological sites so far, and around 50 of them were religious sites. But many of them have not yet been excavated. Even the Bukit Choras site, I have just excavated 30% of them, and we have made so much discoveries. Lots of interesting stuff.
So as a layman, non-archaeologist person here, I want to ask, how do you know that you have excavated only 30%, not more or not less?
Because before we did the excavation, we conducted geophysical survey.
And how's that?
Even before we dug, we shoot some electromagnetic wave into the soil, so we know that there were buried things already. So we scan throughout the area, so we know the location of the temples. So the size of the temple we already know, just the shape only we don't know, but just the size. So based on our excavation, our survey, we know the size already. So we excavate 30%. So there are several areas, several miles that we know there are things.
There are things underneath.
Underneath.
Okay.
And we have not yet excavated the most interesting part yet. We have not yet. So you can expect for some surprises next year.
In the years to come. Next year. Next year.
So we have already planned for our next year's
excavation. Okay. And so this is completely, merging modern technology to look at ancient technology in that sense. So when you say, you were saying that you put waves,
electromagnetic wave,
so that is into the ground, or
the
how?
way we do it is the equipment, it looks just like a lawnmower, so we just push them around the soil, and they are going to shoot the electromagnetic wave. And then when the electromagnetic wave hit upon something solid, it is going to bounce back, and we get the reading.
Alright, got it.
So we know the depth, we know the size, and we know how to strategize our excavation. So we usually go to the edges of the detected structure, And we were right. We discovered, So that is how we were able to predict the presence of buried features.
Okay.
The thing that we cannot know from the survey is whether or not they were natural stone or they were man-made stone. So that's why we need the excavation.
Okay. And I suppose all these excavations cost a lot of money.
Yeah, it costs a lot, but unfortunately,
It's not just about digging earth, right?
No. It costs lots of money, especially for the manpower, equipment, for the conservation. But fortunately, the government of Malaysia had been extremely supportive. The first round of budget came from the Ministry of Higher Education.
Okay.
Through the FRGS grant.
Okay.
The second funding also came from the Ministry of Higher Education.
Right.
And then we got money from Ting City also, who supported our project. So we can see that the archaeological research in Malaysia, we have been supported not just by the government agencies, but also by the private private ventures. So it is a joint collaboration.
That's good.
So
actually.
it's good that we are getting support from everyone.
Yeah. Okay. And so with this, right? Like with all this support, like how long do you think? Because now are you gonna cover like this whole area in Bukit Choras, or are you going to expand more in the years to come? What are your plans, rather?
We are going to fully excavate the area. We are going to expose everything. And the government of Malaysia have already approved the budget to build a structure above the site to protect the site, a shelter, and also to build some stairs to reach the site. The site is located on top of a very steep hill, so we plan to build some stairs and some shelter, to protect the site, so that we can have an in situ conservation. So the excavation is going to take around 2 more years.
Okay.
After we fully excavate the area, then we can be able to develop the area as an archaeotourism site. I do research quite differently as compared to the previous scholars. Previous scholars, they need to complete the excavation as soon as possible. But my way of doing research is to focus on micro evidences. What are micro evidences? Most people, they would simply dig the soil and expose the structure. But to me, yes, the structure is important, but I look at other evidences. I like to excavate my temple very, very slowly. I would look at the soil layers. I would take soil sample and study the soil sample. I would look for pollen. I would look for microfossils. I would look at the chemical content of the soil, so that we can be able to extract as much information as possible. Why? Because firstly, I said the most important thing that I look at, environment. I wanted to understand under what environment the temple or the structure were built, so that we can be able to relate material culture, environment, and human agency. That's why we prefer to do our research slowly, but of course it costs lots of money.
Yes, but you get a very rich set of data.
Exactly. So archaeology is not just about exposing structures, but it is about understanding how human society interacted with the environment and how such interaction led to the emergence of such material culture. That is what we wanted to study. The interface between human beings, material, and environment, which led to the formation of cultures. So those are the things that we are doing.
So to veer off slightly, I understand that you have also faced resistance in terms of when your findings were made public and all that. There were a lot of different voices, because they feel that their interpretations are right over the others. So would you mind just sharing with us, like, what sort of hurdles do you get, as an archaeologist? I know you've firstly, your research is already a huge part, right? But secondly, you've also have to deal with so many different stakeholders, which is really very different from what we expect or envision an archaeologist to do. We think that, last time there's always a joke saying that all archaeologists are probably introverts. They just go dig the earth and, look for treasures. But turns out it is so far from the truth. So would you mind sharing some of that?
Regarding the resistance, fortunately, it's just a fringe group, not so many people. So people, most Malaysians, especially when I look in the social media, they are very supportive.
Yes.
I can say almost all of them. So maybe there are some people, I think less than 0.01%. So Malaysians, they are very supportive, they are very curious to know about the work, and at institutional level, we are getting support from everyone.
Nice.
And I can name them, for instance, the federal government, they have been funding our project. The state government of Kedah has been very helpful. Okay, especially when the land belonged to the state. So the state government, they were very helpful. For instance, the state museum, during our excavation, they send their people, they send their staff to assist us for the excavation. The local community, who lives near to the site, extremely supportive.
Nice,
Okay, and we also get lots of support from NGOs, especially during our community outreach program. It is not enough for us to do our work. We need to tell people about the result of our work. It's through these NGOs. We conducted lots of public lectures. So as far as the support for the research, I am very happy. Of course, there are some noises, very small, but very small number of people, negligible. So we need to focus on the positive part of the research.
Of course,
So we will continue to have such public engagement aside from the research itself. And this podcast is one of the way for us to get our idea through to the people.
I'm glad that this could be part of a public education, public engagement method. So it's very interesting. Thank you so much for being with us at Penang Institute's Spill the Tea. Thanks for helping us basically see how the past is never static or never just defined by one narrative, but it's something that we should keep discovering and understanding. So thank you so much for being here with us. I've been speaking to Associate Professor Dr. Nasha Rodziadi Khaw, Deputy Director of the Center for Global Archaeological Research, USM. This is Spill the Tea, a podcast by Penang Institute.